Welcome to Richard and Sharon Simpson. They are owners of Cummin Up, which is a business which has 3 or 4 branches, serving Caribbean food to the masses. They've been doing this for nearly 30 years. In fact, I think it's the 1st of June they celebrate 30 years in business, which is absolutely amazing. You don't know how great I feel about that, to see a Black couple who've been in business for 30 years. It's actually quite rare. So well done, guys. So welcome, Richard. Welcome, Sharon. I'm going to take you right back now. We're going to start talking about your life as a child. When you were growing up, tell us about your early life and childhood aspirations, because I don't know if food was in your mind when you were growing up or if you had other things. Tell us about that.
Right, well, perhaps I ought to start because I've always had these perhaps type of aspirations. I mean, where we grew up in Southeast London in the Lewisham Borough, right next to Catford Dog Stadium. Now, it was the done thing then that we would look after cars. So whilst the dogs were on, Thursday and Saturday nights, and once or twice a month on a Tuesday, we all had pitches. And when we were young, and the white boys would have, they would have sorted this out. But then as they grew older, and we would then, you know, the black youth were coming of age, if you like, and we were only speaking of you know, 10, 11, 12. We would all have a road, which we call a pitch, and it was very well regulated. And there were, you know, obviously better pitches nearer the entrance, and not so good further away. So the better ones would be taken, and then you'd grab one. But it was so your one might be, yeah, as I say, a street and a particular pen, so maybe two streets. And when people would park their cars, and you would have your regulars, so then people would park their cars, and you just give them the nod, they'll give you the nod, and then that's one of yours you've got to look after. So you'll be patrolling, basically, because cars are often broken into. So you'll be patrolling, and if you know, if you were doing your patrol and somebody else would park, and another person at the neighboring pitch, a friend, he would, you know, ask the question for you. And that's how it was. So when everyone would be leaving at the same time and you couldn't collect all your money, and then, you know, oh yeah, give it to me, I'll pass it on. So there was a degree of camaraderie as well. But that's how we were seeking our pennies. And as time went on, we would be carol singing at Christmas. Penny for the guy. That was another one. You know, with you know, well, for those who don't know, perhaps I ought to explain just in case. But you know, Guy Fawkes and the story of the burning of, or what would have been the explosion of the Houses of Parliament, that was foiled. So coming up to bonfire night, 5th of November, you'd have this, make up this thing, you get your old trousers, a top, and make up what's a mannequin, a stuffed mannequin, and you know, you'd have your little sewing practice and make your head out of, you know, maybe you would take one of your mum's stockings or tights and cut their head. So I think that's one of, you know, if they weren't ready to hand it up, there'd be a problem there. You know, so you'd get this, make up this head out of tights and stuff it and then stitch it all on. So there was creativity involved as well, you know, and it was quite commonplace. And so you'd place this guy at the dog gate as well. And during the week, he would go to the local shopping centre and maybe stick it in the car park, and everything would be penny for the guy. And then coming up to bonfire night, you'd have all your pennies and changing up. And we genuinely would buy fireworks and hot dogs, and mum would cook them up, and we'd have our bonfire, and then we'd place the guy on the bonfire and ignite it, and so it would go up in flames. So we would do that. And during the bank holidays, when they were having daytime events at the dog track, we would be washing cars, because we all live locally. We all live very local to the dog stadium. So we'd have our water supply and the rest, and we'd be washing cars. So that was the that was what I suppose, that entrepreneurial spirit. You know, the you know, you want to make a few pennies, and not everyone. You know, we were short of nothing, but we didn't have all that we wanted, let's say, and there was huge degree of independence.
Mm. Okay. And did you feel that there is something in your family also? Were your family entrepreneurial, your mum or dad?
It all starts with a base. I mean, and that's all I could ask for, particularly now with the benefit of hindsight. I mean, we're much more fortunate in that, you know, we're more affluent, we have funds, and therefore we've been able to help our children along the way. But for my upbringing, it was just stability. And I don't say that lightly, so I won't say just, it was stable. I mean, mum, dad was there, consistently working. Mum put me out when I was born. Mum put me out to carers, nursery or in the home, you know, and she soon found that I wasn't taken care of very well. She would come back in from work, collect me. Maybe I wouldn't be, my nappy wouldn't be changed. I'd be in the nappy all day. I'd be very messy. And she wasn't happy with that at all. And there was just the two of us, Paul, my brother and myself, and she wasn't very happy. And they elected very early on, you know, they sacrificed, and they elected early on that they would look after us. And my mother then started working nights, and she worked nights for many, many, many years. And it would be the toy factory, Matchbox toy factories, or toy factory in East London. And I've only recently found out it was East London, because I had no idea where that place was. I knew there were a couple of different factories, but, you know, mum was always very progressive. I mean, both my parents are progressive, but mum, seemingly, as far as academics are concerned, was that much more progressive. I mean, my father, I remember him saying he was in night. I mean, he ended up driving the bus, very stable. But he went to evening class and was learning plumbing very early on, but didn't pursue it. And mum was a seamstress and was doing evening classes, because we weren't very far from our local what would have been our primary school later on. And you know, she gave that up. She gave up her opportunity, if you like, to better herself and you know, put herself on a higher pegging as far as wage was concerned. And she gave that up for our sake. So there's forever a debt of gratitude there, because it made the home stable. It was it was a first-class foundation. As I said, didn't have everything, but short of nothing. Extremely proud, highly independent, and I can't emphasize that enough. Highly independent. Don't beg, don't borrow. Wait, buy your own. And I remember, you know, this was something that was instilled in me, you know, and my father would always say, you know, hold your head up, hold your head up, hold your head up. No walk around and look for your shoes. Hold your head up. And so much so, there's a saying he used to use was, be brave, be brave. And that was his way of saying, you know, be bold and be courageous. Don't be bashful. And that's actually, he died a few years back, sort of 2013. And when asked, what would I like to, you know, if there was anything I'd like on the stone, on this headstone, and that's all I said. Inverted commas, be brave. And, you know, I'm just, you've got me choking up a little bit. You've got me choking up a little bit now, but that was it. It was just be brave, be positive. And when you're infused with that very early on, there's nothing you can't achieve. There's absolutely nothing you can't achieve. Everything is possible. And that's how it's been with my brother and I. You know, we might not be better than anyone, but our shoulders are equal pegging with everybody. You know, we're no less. And so that's it. That, you know, that was instilled. Be independent, and be brave. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Sharon, tell us about your early upbringing and your aspirations when you're little.
Yeah, well, when I was young, I used to go around my grandpa and grandma's house, and I used to tidy up, and I used to get 50p, and 50p at that age, at a young age, it was for me, it was like, wow. And I used to save so much. And then my mum used to do catering. So she used to cater for birthdays and weddings, and then she used to bake cakes. So again, you know, and we used to help her. So she used to give us a little something. But I was saving and saving every penny. And then I used to do washing for my uncles, like wash their shirts and iron them and giving it back to them, and they were so proud. They gave me the money. I was like, wow, you know. And I was and like Richard said, we used to do the penny for the guy thing, and we used to get money for that as well. Yeah, that's my growing up. Oh yeah, and then I think when I was about, I think it was 18, we started doing grandma and grandpa parties every month. But I used to cook in my kitchen. And they used to love the food. They said, "Oh, who cook this food?" You know. And I used to say, "Oh, Heidi, you should open up a shop. You should open up a shop." And we used to always do it, but we used to be busy. And they said, "Love the food, all the Caribbean food and people." And I was like, "Wow," you know. And I think that's when we first opened up New Cross, the first shop.
Well, no, just keeping it with the children.
Oh yeah, sorry. Sorry. Yes. So growing up, it was like, for me, I was making a lot of money where other children wasn't making. And I think that's what made me, I don't know, it just made me stronger.
It sounds like you were good with money, because you were saving it and not dashed out to buy the nearest trainers or something.
No, I was saving, and I was just seeing that money just getting higher. And I mean, at a young age, I think I must have been about 12. I've saved £150.
Wow.
And someone asked me, "Oh, can I borrow your money?" And never gave it back to me. Oh wow, that was really hard.
Oh no.
At 12 years old, you know, but bless them with it. That's what I said, and the Lord blessed me more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Someone blessed me. So
yeah, even as Sharon's speaking about, I think that's what we've been very fortunate as well. You know, I worked and saved money and bought little trinkets, as young people do. But I think predominantly we were very good with money. We were very good with money. We saved, and even, I mean, I remember buying my first pair, what I considered of, you know, trainers proper, and I'd saved my money, and in that local precinct shopping centre, which I spoke about earlier, they had a trainers shop in there, KG Sports, and I you know, went in, and there was a pair of trainers. They were white Adidas Leader. Adidas Leader with the green stripes. White Adidas Leader with the green stripes. And I wore size 8 then, and these were 8.5, and they were too big. But they were. It was like the last pair, and they were much reduced. And I scraped all my pennies together. I said, "It doesn't matter. Half a size is not a problem, you know." And this, I was 11, and because up until that time we'd be buying, you know, plimsolls. Parents would be buying plimsolls in Woolworths, you know.
Yeah.
You know, right? So there's, you know, perhaps there's 2 names there: plimsolls and Woolworths. So I saved, and I went and got these trainers, and that night, or maybe the night afterwards, at 11, I remember this because I started doing karate at 11, and because I just wanted to do anything physical, because I ate a lot and I was huge. I was a big boy, and I went the night to Crofton Leisure Centre that had not long been built. A Friday night, and not, you know, I'm 11. I've gone in the changing room, and I've taken my put on my kit, left, and I left my trainers under the bench. Didn't have a problem. When I got back, all these other guys were in the changing room, and it was disappointing really, because they were all black, and they were all much older than I was. And all of a sudden I put out a scream, "My trainers!" And I started crying my eyes out. And within 2 minutes, the place was empty. And we were talking about 20 people in this changing room, all changing, all older boys. And the place was empty, and I was crying my eyes out. And I never forget, and I reminded him this, and he you know, it was his nature, so he didn't have a clear memory of it. But Harry Powell, one of our what went on to be, wasn't at the time one of our youth leaders, very prominent in the Lucia Borough. And I remember it was a Hillman. Didn't know much about cars, but you know, these things are very important. I mean, they stay with you. You know, I'm 11-year-old. You know what you've done to save your money, penny for the guys at carol singing, and your first pair of trainers, you know, and the gleaming, and somebody stole them. So if it's you out there who steal my trainers, don't think somebody forget. Yeah, they stole them, and I walked. Well, I didn't have to walk, because I was saying with Harry gave me a lift home. Harry gave me a lift home. I didn't have any. I was bare feet on my dusty socks, and yeah, didn't have my trainers. So that was yeah, that was a bit of a wake up call as well, I suppose. The naivety stopped pretty quickly. But as Sharon said, moving on slightly, as a precursor, and you're speaking about the entrepreneurial spirit, what we came up with was this concept of grandmas and grandpas dances, because we felt that people were promoting dances for our own age group, but what was for our parents?
Oh.
And some weren't too happy with the grandma and grandpa title, I have to say. It grew on them because they saw themselves as youngsters. And, you know, in all fairness, they were, in essence, the same age as we are now, early, mid-50s. And, you know, if somebody says to me, "Oh, you old whatever," I wouldn't feel too pleased about it either. But so we kept these dances, and we lived in a small flat, and it was full on. You know, Sharon and I would be off to the local market in Deptford and buying fish and chicken and rice, and we'd cook up these things. And I guess we were, I don't know, was Melissa born then? Melissa wasn't born then, was he?
No, Melissa
No,
wasn't.
not quite. So we were just perhaps 20. We were just, I think we were about 20 years old. And so we had this idea of promoting these dances. So we got a local community centre and did exactly that. And bought the alcohol, went and invested. In fact, I didn't buy them. I went to a hire shop, and I would hire these optics on stands. And got my older cousins in who would run the bar. And Sharon's twin sister, Sue, would be helping to sell the food and drink. And, you know, my brother with my father, they'd be, you know, sort of keeping the door. And we did that a few times until one day they love these. I say the community, the management, or should I say the caretakers, whoever volunteered to work the night, they loved it because they would just party. And there was one in particular, he got so drunk. He's the caretaker. He got so drunk, he hadn't locked the place properly. You know, he just went off, and then you know, I learned about all this afterwards. So he was wrapped on the knuckles, and then we hired it again, and we did a few of them. But this last, what proved to be the last one, was I'd forgotten to take the price list away. I left the price list up on the wall, and then it became apparent that we were selling alcohol. Nobody had asked any questions, but we've been selling alcohol, selling whatever. This wasn't permitted. No life, no whatever. So you know, we had a little run. We did that, and again, it just added to the coffers. So we have always been entrepreneurial.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever there's been an angle, you know, and then at the same time, or perhaps slightly later, no, about the same time, my brother and I were involved in textiles. So over at the old Petticoat Lane, you had lots of what they would now call sweatshops, but manufacturing plants, manufacturing warehouses, and dealing a lot with leather goods. And we would have coats and jackets was our thing. We would have them made up and have pieces of leather, whether leather, you know, leather design, leather, not entirely leather, often fabric, but leather trims, or the jeans jackets, or the with the cartoon strips. We were very early in these things. I mean, I remember commissioning 50 duffel coats. Now, you might remember, Dawn, when duffel coats had a resurgence, didn't it? We all wore them as children. Well, I did anyway, with the big toggles, the big thick black coats, duffel coats, donkey jackets. Yeah, and we made a load because we would see the magazines in the sort of textile industry, what was going out on the catwalks and all this stuff. So our guys would be just ripping them off, basically copying designs and then putting them out in Petticoat Lane. And I remember commissioning 50 duffel coats, and I couldn't sell one. They were just before their time. And it was 3 years later, we're selling hundreds. I wasn't in time. They were getting orders. Yeah, they were getting orders. And are we still on?
Yeah. Elle Simpson, is that your daughter?
Leanne, yeah, Leanne.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
I've got it so that it moves to whoever's speaking. So Leanne, we'll talk to you a little, probably in about 10 minutes or so, Leanne. So hang in there with us, okay? All right, I'll edit that bit out when I do it.
Right.
Okay, how did you two meet? How did you two meet?
At a party. Yeah, again, youngsters. I mean, Sharon will quote the figures better than I would, I'm sure. But I think it's 30. I think it's 37 years, thereabouts, 36, 37 years, because we've got our oldest as a marker and a few years afterwards. So maybe, yeah, so 36 years ago, I attended a party in Peckham, as we did young men, particularly because we'd not so long, well, the first few of us had passed our driving test. I was one of those early ones and had a car. And then, you know, everyone would be in convoy, you know, of the 2 or 3 people who had cars then. Rather than jump in one car, you know, we'd all want to drive. So there'd be a little convoy, you know, and so we'd stop at various, always, whether we were invited or not. And we were never invited, if I'm honest. Yeah, that's the truth. You'd be just, you know, you'd find out ear to the ground which parties are on, or you might go to one party and then so and so's leaving to go to another one, and so you quickly developed your system where you would have you know, the cup where, you know, normally the white cups everybody would buy, the white disposable cups. So you'd have your white disposable cup in your car. You'd have put a little drink. So when you get to the door, so the idea was, you knock and they open your board. You just board through. You don't talk much. We would say you board through. So you got your cup, and that was a sham to say that you'd already been in the party. And everyone would be using those white cups. I mean, not like nowadays,
wow.
Red ones or whatever. They'd be like, where you get that cup from? That's not from here. But everybody was using the white cups. So yeah. door knock, you go in, you got your cup, you know, when you're chatting to, and if you see someone in the hallway, it's even better. You strike up a quick conversation, you know. And so this is one of those. And yeah, I attended this party, and obviously Sharon was there, and you know, we danced and spoke, and it was left at that because it wasn't any mobile phones or anything those days. But I then so we'd established perhaps a couple of common friends, and there was that youth centre as I spoke about, which Sharon also attended, Crofton, Youth, the youth centre, and so I used that and did a bit of investigative work, investigation, you know, and inquired as to you know, where Sharon lived, and me with my beer fierce simply turned up on the doorstep.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was that simple. I just turned up on the doorstep. Unbeknown to me at the time, Susan had just gotten her flat. I mean, this is we're sort of I just turned 18, Sharon was 17. And Sharon, Susan had just gotten her flat, so Sharon had moved out to live with her twin. So she wasn't physically there.
Oh, so Susan is Sharon's twin?
No, it was one of the, it was her uncle, in fact. I remember, I don't forget.
Well, who's Susan? You just mentioned Susan.
Oh, Sharon, apologies, Sharon's twin. Sharon's an identical twin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right, sorry, Sharon's an identical twin, which I didn't know at the time. And so the uncle, I later found out to be her uncle. I mean, these are all young people because her mother had them quite young. And so there's not much of an age difference between them. And particularly her uncles, they all grew with the grandfather. So they all lived together in sort of big houses. And so he answered the door. She obviously wasn't there. But then one of her younger sister came out who recognized me from the center. And, you know, must have thought I would be very well suited to her sister. So she gave me the heads up and basically gave me the address, told me where to find her, but I wasn't to say who told me. One of those.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's so sweet.
Yeah, so yeah, I pursued her.
Yeah. So Sharon, when you came knocking, were you shocked?
I was quite shocked. I said, oh, because I was sort of scared because in case my mom, you know, tell me off, you know. But yeah, he came round, and we was talking. We talked quickly. I think we exchanged numbers, and then and then when I moved out.
No, let's say there's the story. There's the story with the big. And I'll say this KFC bucket of chicken.
Yeah. and candy.
And baby sham.
Baby sham, that's it. Baby sham.
So I was looking to make a little splash. So I was driving, and I remember being out with one of my cousins and female cousins, and I said, "Oh, I bought this bucket of KFC chicken." And like I think it was maybe a 6-pack of baby sham, I think, or 4-pack, maybe a 4-pack of baby sham as it was sold then. And I got to the door, and as Sharon says, we were in conversation. And the long of the short is they took the chicken and closed the door.
Yeah.
Really?
Thank you.
Thank you. They took the box of chicken, or she took the box of chicken and shut the door on me. We had a bit of a conversation, obviously.
Oh gosh!
And then closed the door. So I thought, well, maybe my luck was in, but it wasn't.
Oh, but you didn't give up. You went back, yeah?
Naturellement.
Oh, good. Oh, that's a lovely story. Okay, so tell me about. Sorry, Sharon.
Now I said, and then he started inviting me to some of the parties he went to because he was a sound man.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Oh, the DJ.
Yeah.
Original mic talker for years without tears.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, that a sound, very proud of it too. Sound system background, symphony sound,
Oh,
harmony of sound.
and it's amazing. You've been together ever since, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic. So tell me about you. Oh, yes, I understand. You can tell me about the ups and downs in a minute. Tell me about your first premises then. So your first takeaway your first takeaway premises was in New Cross, am I right?
That's right. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, again, it was a time where, it was a time where how I came across that premises, actually, I remember the story as you've prompted me. I had this idea of getting a food shop because my mum was in New York at the time, and she'd been there for a number of years, and her sister had set up a 3 years. Yeah, her sister had set up a takeaway out there. So I just had this idea that, you know, we could do the same. And I was looking, and it was a club we used to attend in New Cross, the Fez nightclub. And I remember there was a Turkish friend, but their family was in business. They had chip shops, I remember. And then he prompted me and said, why don't you, because I was asking him about premises, and he said, why don't you, have you spoken to the railway? And at that time, I had no idea about British Rail or Property Rail Board and all this. I had no idea. And, you know, so in everything, you know, I'm just, as I'm recollecting, our walk is mapped somewhat, and opportunities are given to us. And how do we turn that into, you know, that cards are given to us? How do we play those cards? An opportunity is given to us. We mightn't see at the time. How do we capitalize on it? Do we capitalize on it? And I think the background, that entrepreneurial spirit would, you know, you jump on anything, you know, you get a little tidbit and you jump on it. And that's what I did. I found out who these people were, British Rail Property Board, and contacted them, and with the usage and everything. And we were just so blessed, I have to say, with this place at New Cross. They said, and I this would be a scoop because I haven't said this to anyone before, but we got the shop, and it was a cafe of old from the sort of early 50s, maybe even before that. But that was the earliest on record when I checked, 1954. That was when the first registration. So maybe they just set up the records at the local authority or whatever, I don't know. When I was looking into the planning, and it had the planning use, which was A3 at the time. Now they've got A5 and other different categories. It was A3. And right next to New Cross Gate Station. So I didn't really know New Cross. In fact, how I knew New Cross, going back to the clubbing and the parties and the blues dance and the shubby in them, there was a shop which next door, literally next door, that used to sell second gabichi tops. So they were factory soiled. So they'd have a little hole here, a little bit, but there again, you know, so Farrahs were the thing, Farrah trousers, ballet shoes, and gabichi tops. So I remember, you know, buying a gabichi. That was again a top with a zipped up top often enough, or some top buttons with often had leather trim. And I remember buying my first one, a brown one, and it was just next door. So we found the shop. I paid the deposit to get the key. So I made my way down there, went in, and then had a fire inside. It was just pitch black, and it had been ripped out. And so somebody else had gotten it, but decided not to pursue it. So you see, when you know, favor is upon you, someone else had gutted it, but there had been a fire. So when I got back to the contact, Nigel Escott was his name, the contact at British Rail, I said, are you aware that there's been a fire in there? And because it was being sold to me or offered to me as a premise ready to go. It was a cafe, we could trade, but it was gutted and there'd been a fire. And so I called him and said, are you aware that there's been a fire? And he's like, what? He was all shocked. They didn't know what was going on. And a long story short, I, with all my savings, opened the shop. It cost me just over £10,000. And that was just hard work. And those days I was getting 230 odd pounds per month. £252 per month was my salary. And well, we can go back in a minute and talk about the education and the work. But I'd saved, obviously, as we were saying, we were savers, and we saved our money. And so I took that. That wasn't any of Sharon's money. I took that and paid for it. But then, just before its conclusion, he said to me, and I think this was much to do with the way it was advertised as being, and he says, you know what? I got to go, because by that time, Nigel and I had developed a very good relationship. And he said, Richard, I think I could get you your money back. And I goes, yeah? He goes, I think the British Rail will be prepared to pay for that. And that's what happened.
Amazing.
I had to find the money. I found the money, and then within a short time, I got a check back with just over £10,000.
Oh, that's fantastic. Because I was going to ask you, I was going to say, did they give you a rent-free period? Because you're taking out a burnt-out shell.
It was, if I remember right, it might have been a month. I think it was a month. But nothing more was offered. I had to find the money. You know, I'm a youngster. Find my builder, designed it in my mind. You know, forever scribbling on bits of paper. We were in the flat at that time. By this time, we'd had our first child, Melissa, and she was 3 then when all the plans were going ahead, and opened in 1991, and we'd gotten it. You know, we'd done all of that, and I'd paid for it. But even with that, because before I'd gotten the money, I just didn't quite have enough to get a decent cooker. Well, I didn't know that I would get a big one. We just said we'll get a 4-burner, or then I saw in a second-hand shop a big domestic one. So I said, okay, we'll get that. And my dad said, no. We'll, because obviously I looked at commercial, but they were too expensive for me.
Yeah,
it was only about £700, but my money was spent. And we didn't even have an extraction system in, because I didn't even appreciate that the place would get so hot. We just didn't know. We were making it up as we go along. We didn't know anything about extraction systems. Didn't know that we required it. We just thought, well, we cook and open the window. And so my dad insisted. He said no. So he actually loaned me that money. He bought the cooker for me. And we put it in, and we've got 6-burner cooker going on. We're cooking, don't know what we're doing really, learning it as we're going on, and we're sweating. It is so hot. Oh man, the place was so hot. And we're getting fans and all this, and then the fans would just circulate, blowing hot air back on us. And we're drinking, and this went on for over a month, and then and then by the second month, but we'd saving money. And I'd go back quickly and say that don't let anyone say that your business will not be a success straight away. If you've done your homework, and it's, premises, position, location. If you've done your homework, there is no reason whatsoever that your business will not skyrocket. There's no reason. And by God's grace, this is what happened to us. I mean, we worked it. I remember we did our flyers. Sharon's got the pushchair. The second child was born that year, 1991, Venice. And we opened June the 1st, 1991. So she was still in hand. She was a babe. She was weaned in the shop. But leading up to the opening, we'd be getting flyers, you know, pushing it around the streets, pushing flyers through the doors. We were just working it. We were working it. You know, we were favored, but we were prepared to apply ourselves. And, you know, my background's engineering, and I looked after, if I could, I'm an engineer. So pipe work and control systems. And I was the specialist in the company of 12 branches throughout the company. And I was the only black person. And I was one of the youngest. And by the time I'd left, I was looking after the power station, Sizewell Nuclear, Isle of Grain gas-fired power station, Dungeness coal-fired A and B power stations on the coast. I was dealing with Babcocks down in Crawley, who were building power stations and desalination plants for Iraq. And that was a problem then when they had the first scare about the war and they thought we were supplying pipes and stuff to make guns. So that was the big thing. So I looked after all that for my company, and I had an expense account, I had a company car. I'd worked my way through the ranks. And at 24, I couldn't really go much further because the person who employed me, I was now on level pegging. And we were both responsible to the regional director. So with that entrepreneurial background and selling the garments and whatever else whilst working, so that was going on as well, and earning £13,000 a year, and thinking, no matter how hard I work, I remember walking around in Surrey one lovely day, very bright, going to another client, because I'd be managing my own time and going into the office once a week, reporting to the bosses, having our meetings, debrief, and I remember walking around in Surrey thinking, it was a lovely day, and I was feeling quite depressed because we just had our obviously we've got one child then, and I'm thinking, how am I going to buy a home? How am I going to buy a home? You know, because we were blessed. As I said, we didn't have everything, but you know, we owned our own home. Dad bought that in 1963. I was born in 65, and you know, and I was like, how am I going to afford a home, you know, for my child and my girlfriend, my then girlfriend? You know, how are we going to set up ourselves? I can't get a mortgage with this. And really, that was the catalyst. I need to earn. And you know,
so you felt that although you were earning 13,000 a year, you felt no matter how hard you worked with this company, you're never going to earn much more than that.
No, it wouldn't, because you just get your annual pay rise a couple of points above inflation, perhaps, and that was it. And I was at level pegging, as I said. Unless somebody had died, there wasn't really anywhere going. And I thought, well, I need to, you know, I'm familiar with, you know, the hustling, if you like, and we need to do our own thing. You know, I'm thinking about me. I'm talking to myself. You know, I'm like a young man. The frustration. How am I going to provide for my family? I can't do it on this. Have to do something else. You know, so that was the catalyst. And we went and again got the premises, and you know, you might say the rest is history, but when we started, I remember that first week, I had just taken a couple of weeks off work. So I still had the company car. I'd taken a couple of weeks off work, and I'd taken 2 weeks off work, and it was due to open the week before, but we had problems with the gas company. They didn't sort themselves out. So British Gas, they didn't come until days later. So we missed the opening. And well, we missed it, but what I mean, 1st of June, I mean, it's a nice round day anyway. Yeah. And that's what it means. And the flyer said the 25th of May. first prize in the 25th of May. And we were unable to open because we didn't have any gas.
Yeah.
And so, but by that time there was, there was a buzz.
Yeah.
There was a buzz in the area, because New Cross houses Goldsmiths University, which is part of the University of London. Nowadays, New Cross is the University of London. They've taken everything that's available in terms of residential properties, for halls of residence. They've built halls of residence. They've refurbed lots of things right throughout New Cross and Deptford. So now they've really and at that time, I should also add, New Cross Gate Station was the furthest point south on the underground.
Yes.
So everyone in all of South London, if they wanted to enter the underground system, had to go to New Cross or New Cross Gate Station. There were two, and we were in the middle of both of them. So you could imagine the footfall.
Yes.
It was colossal. And so, we eventually opened, and Mum was very skeptical initially, because I'm thinking I've got to give up my job. Sharon was very skeptical. Are you sure you want to give up your job? Because I was always of the mind, failure wasn't an option. But if I was to, I can say that I gave it my all. I wasn't going to have somebody else fronting my business. And I had presence of mind enough to say, well, if it's going to fail, it's going to fail on my own shortcomings and not the shortcomings of somebody else. So that I'll be forever blaming someone. So I wanted to give it up. So I was sounding that out with Mum and Sharon. And I remember even because my dad's always seemed to be a bit of a pessimist, and he was, when I first went to look at the shop, and I can't remember what. I remember he was like, the word he had these expressions, and he was like, he would just write something off immediately, and I can't remember now what he would say, but he would say something and he'd just write off. But he didn't write this off. He wasn't enamored, but he wasn't negative, because my mum would always be on him. You're too negative, right? Because at that time, my brother, we said the textiles, my brother had set up a small business in Peckham with my mum that was running for a few years in an indoor market, selling garments. So I was doing that through the car. My brother was, had my mum, who had just gotten back from America, as I said, so wasn't doing anything. So she was working there in Peckham. And then, and he, as I said, he didn't give it the negative. So that was that was encouraging in itself. He wasn't very pro. So few days passed, and we were just busy. We were so busy. We didn't know how. And by the third day, they both said, the Wednesday, well, it was the third day, it was the Wednesday, it was the Tuesday, I think. We started on the Saturday. It was Saturday, the 1st of June. And by the Tuesday, they were saying, like, no, give up the job. Give up the job. They were like, give up the job. And that's what I did. And I was in the last week of the second week of my holidays I'd taken. And I rolled up the Monday morning and had written this letter. I was writing at the desk, and asked if I could be relieved of my duties immediately.
Really? You didn't give them a week's notice or a month?
No, I gave the notice, if you like, there and then. I'd written something on my desk, and I asked if I could be relieved, and they said yes.
Oh.
Because they knew I was planning on opening something, because I was ever using the company's fax machine.
I see.
Sending stuff for approval and all this sort of stuff, and drawings that whilst I was at work. Because up until then, I had a fax machine at home. I'd gotten a fax machine, and all this, the desk was the floor, if Sharon remembers. We'd have these drawings and we'd be sketching out the shop, and it was on the floor, and the fax machine was in the corner, and we'd be sketching out and doing whatever. And the fax machine was also the copier. It would copy as well on thermal paper. So that would be my little copies. and you plug it in the telephone socket as you did, and dial your numbers, and and this is when we were perfecting the menu. Because I said, jumping around a bit, but I said then very early on that our marketplace is everyone. Our customer is everyone. The market is huge. A person has an opportunity to fill their stomach. And so everybody else is a competitor. So no matter which cuisine or fare you're into, whether it, again, chips, Indian, Chinese, whatever it is, everyone's a competitor, because that lunchtime, they're going to fill their, or evening, they're going to fill their stomach once, and which will it be? So I looked at it, and at that time, of the 1 and 2 shops which were around in Brixton, it would be, you cook oxtail on a Friday, and this, that on that day, and that. So I knew where they were coming from, because obviously there wasn't, they didn't have the knowledge to run business, inevitably, but that's what it proved. And they would cook this, and they'd cook just enough, and it might run out. But if you were a customer who wanted to eat brown stew chicken every day, you couldn't do that. But yet still, I could go and order Singapore fried rice, special fried rice, or anything from 100 items.
Exactly.
And get it. So there was obviously something they were doing I had to learn. Now, I understand that there's another story with this, but I understand that, they just have a series of meats, lamb, this, that, and then make up their sauces, and then they heat everything. So they had a good model, because they wouldn't have any waste, it would be refrigerated, and they'd be earning money all day long. How do I replicate that? I didn't know much of that at the time, but I knew that I needed to work out how to do that. And I offered the full menu, and up to this day, 30 years later, my menu hasn't changed. We've added 1 or 2 items, but our menu hasn't changed. It is as was. The little footnotes, writing it out, curry goat, the most typical festive dish, whatever. Those little strap lines, they haven't. I thought about it.
The sound's gone. Hello?
Sorry.
Yeah, the sound went for a minute.
Yeah, we're back, yeah. So I thought about it. I drafted this menu, and we were told off. People weren't too happy with us in the earliest. Coming up, a celestial food and rare. But it wasn't that. Food manufacturers, leading, just as after I started, I put myself through Croydon College in the evenings, and put myself on the advanced environmental food courses, the same courses that the environmental health officers would have put themselves on. The advanced course, not even, I went straight for the deep end. I went on the advanced course. I didn't take exams, but I wasn't interested in exams. I was interested in the knowledge. So twice a week, I would attend Croydon College, Tuesday and a Thursday, and acquire the knowledge about food safety and how best to handle. Because I always viewed ourselves as being big. It was never, because my background was such, where I was coming from, it was never going to be one store. It was never the idea. It was always going to be a few stores and grow. And so I went to learn how to handle food, how best. And because at the end of the day, you go in even those days, what was Beecham's at the time, which became Iceland, they would be freezing food and cook meals and this and this. And so I went to learn how to do this and how to do it safely. And I applied those, even in those days, I applied these modern techniques to our traditional fare. So with blast chilling and storage and reheating and temperature controls and holding times, we could then produce and have stock continually and have a full menu every day. And there was no shortcuts. And I have to also say that I worked for 2 burger stores when I was 16. I worked for Huckleberry's on Oxford Street, opposite, which no longer exists now, Debenhams, or soon not to exist, on Oxford Street when I was 16. And I also worked for McDonald's when I was 16. In fact, with McDonald's, I worked for Huckleberry's for a few months, and I went on to work for McDonald's, more locally in Peckham. And I was 16, but I told them I was 18 because you got a higher rate of pay. You got about 20 pence more an hour. So I told them I was 18. And one of the managers who was there at the time, who must have been studying himself, used to go to my school. And he was older than me. And he pulled me one side and he said, "You're not 18. You're in year so-and-so."
Wow.
But thankfully, he kept that quiet. And I was employed. But what I had to do, at 16, you couldn't work past 11. So as the older member of staff, we would do our own night closing, unlike those in the West End, where they would have their night closers. So they, they would nasty up the shop, I would say. And at 11, they would go home, and then the night closers would come in and strip the place and clean it. But we had to do our own. So at 11 o'clock, close. Somebody, the managers would do the milk, the shake machine. Everything was stripped and sanitized. I'd end up with the back room, what we call back room. And that would be just washing and sanitizing and washing. And I would be washing. And it would be like the trays, the metal trays we would use, the metal stainless trays. It would be like they'd be breathing in the water. They'd never end. Complete disrespect, because everybody else was in a hurry. I'm a 16-year-old, and they're just dumping stuff in the, they just come around and they just dump stuff in the sink or dump stuff on the side. If you were outside, if you were fortunate, they'd ask you, where would you like this? Everybody just wants to get out. So it would be just washing and sanitizing, and the worst with the troughs. The troughs held all the grease from the day's burgers. Dealing with this hot fat. And, so that was it. That's how I cut my teeth. And
yeah, it was good training for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was very good training. There was one story I mentioned, again, about focus. And as I said, I was very fortunate. I'm highly blessed in that I was perhaps a little older than my years suggested, in my head at least. And I remember having a manager, an Egyptian. I won't call his name, but he was Egyptian, I remember. And he's calling me up to the public toilets. We were upstairs in McDonald's. And I remember him giving me a pair of gauntlets, long gloves, and went into the toilets and he said, "Clean that out." And it was feces. The toilet had been blocked with feces and toilet paper. And I had to get my hands with gloves and scoop the feces. And he stood over me laughing. And it got me wound up, because at one stage it was he and I in the corridor, and he said, so he had a list. He said, "Sorry, you want to hit me? You want to hit me?" And because he wanted to have me sacked. And I knew why I was there. I was there to earn money. So I got on with it. And I tell that story all the time to my new staff. I said, I will never humiliate any of you in such a way. But you've got to know your purpose. And this is what I went through. And I'm here to tell the tale. And I cleaned the toilets. And lo and behold, he and I became very good friends after that. Very good.
Really?
Yeah. He and I became very good friends after that. There was a respect. I was only a youngster. I was 16. But there was a respect, because he pushed me to the limit. What he thought was the limit, and I didn't break. I got on with it, because I turned everything to my advantage. When they were talking about trash walks, you try and get a youngster now to put on a McDonald's coat and walk around the block and pick up rubbish. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And I did that. But I was in a hot kitchen on a grill those days. So, I'd be working on grill those days. So I was coming through the ranks. And it was good. The camaraderie was fantastic. And you'd be, who's the best on regular grill? 6 10 turn lays, 6 max, 12 pieces of meat, and 12 burgers. So as you hit the buzzer and you turn them, then you'd lay your more meat next to it, you know, and you became fast. It was really good. And so I, Richard, go on a trash wall. And it was, yeah, fine. I put on the coat and I get to Sky for 20 minutes, walking around the block, just taking it easy, having a breeze. You know, I just turned it into something positive. Got my money when we went home, and it was fabulous. They had a really good ethos, selling a hot sandwich, and making millions and millions from a hot sandwich that in and of itself didn't taste good. But because it had ketchup and sauce or tartar sauce for the filet or burger sauce, mac sauce, special sauce, it became something. And, so this was sort of really solid, really, really solid grounding.
So once you got the business going, how long did you find it was now taking you to earn that 13,000 instead of a year? Were you earning it in a month?
Let me say, our first week's takings, again, I'd never forget it, £1,850.
Wow.
The first week, £1,850. And the meals were £2.50 each. £2.50. So that can give you an idea of the volume.
Wow.
Right? £2.50. And if we kind of extrapolate that same meal now we will sell for £5 and £6. Okay. So you're talking about, £4,500 turnover on a weekly basis. So if you're a small business starting out nowadays, the first week you could take £4,500. You're doing pretty well. You're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
If, you can put that in today's terms and say it's about £4,500, and you could turn that in the first week. You're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
But we put in the work. There was lots of tears, enough eye water.
Okay, so tell me, when couples work together on a business, especially a catering business, a food business, it's not easy. Sometimes tempers are afoot and relationships crumble. How have you two managed? Sharon, tell me, how have you two managed?
Well, I think for me and Richard, I think we manage well because I've always put Richard first, or I always say that Richard's the boss because there's only one boss, and I used to just listen to him. But when Richard's mum and dad was in the shop, it was like 3 bosses, and they would be throwing things across the room.
Really?
There were arguments. Oh, and I used to just stand there and just look, and I used to think, what? I was quiet. But yeah, me and Richard, I think we got on really well. We got on well with many things, even when we used to do outside functions. We got on really well because I was more of the quiet one anyway. So yeah, at first I was scared to serve the customers because some of them was ignorant, and you're thinking, oh gosh, and he'd say, Richard, but Richard would push me the front, serve them, and I think that's what got me out of my shyness.
Oh,
now I can serve the customers. I can talk with them now. Before I was very quiet.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I was scared though at first.
I was the front man with the voice.
Yeah.
But I would always be encouraging. No, Sharon, go on. You did it. And there were times. No, it has to be said. At one stage, Sharon and I would meet at the door. She would open the shop. She'd be running it and serving in the day, cooking and serving on her own. Yeah. And Venice would be there, the youngster, in the shop, and then Mum would pop in, or Dad, because they at the beginning Mum was available, obviously, so Mum would be around, and Dad would I think he'd taken some holiday as well, so he'd be, and the tempers were high. They were, because particularly with my family, we were very vocal. There's the 4 of us, but we were very vocal. We, our family, our dinners, people would, we'd be firing off at each other, but we'd all express what we have to express, and then it would clear. That's how we were. And Sharon, not that she didn't know, but then she saw more of it because, working with someone and the pressures, you see other sides, as you're probably alluding to, other sides of their character. And it was you couldn't put my mum and I in the same room. It was fiery. But then keep us apart. When mum was in America, I'd be calling her every other day.
Oh.
Keep us apart. What? So that would be it. And very opinionated, obviously, and it'd be like that. But I think what Sharon and I established from earlier on, there was obviously common purpose and common objective right the way through. Day-to-day common purpose and ultimate common objective. And we worked a very good system of separation. The domestic would be the domestic. But when we were at work, and as she said, she'd give herself over to me being the boss, and perhaps she'd be the boss at home. And I would be in charge, you know, because again, I knew more, if you like. You know, from also a business perspective as well. And so I would be in charge, yes. I would have responsibility, but if we had an issue at home, it would stay at home. Mm-hmm. But what was really nice was coming to work on a Sunday, where, because at those days we didn't have any staff. Mm-hmm. It was Sharon's twin, my mum, myself, and we took on one young person, just up from Jamaica, big woman though, few hours a day. And on a Sunday though, that would be our family time in the shop. It's good. So with, you know, Sharon would then cook up the brown stew chicken, and we'd have our Sunday dinner in the shop. Mm. And that was our family. That was young Melissa Venice as a baby, and Sharon and myself, and that would be the only time we'd really be working together. I mean, there'd be times when we'd be working together, obviously, but as the months progressed and we started establishing some kind of shift patterns, and I'd be taking Melissa to nursery and collecting her from nursery. I'd be in the shop in the day for a couple of hours, going to the cash and carry. I'd be jumping in and out, but Sharon would be fixed. And then at 4 o'clock, I'd pick up, or 3:30, whatever it was, I'd pick up Melissa from the nursery, bring her to the shop. Sharon would organize something to eat. I would take over the duties in the evening. I'd then be on my own until 7 o'clock, where then Sharon's twin would come in. And that was the pattern. And so it went on. And I remember Christmas, amongst loads of stories, but I remember Christmas. I mean, you know, we were putting in, can you imagine, like, we'd get in there 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, and we're there until 2, 2:30 in the morning. Wow. On a cycle. I remember Christmas, the first Christmas, and I hadn't have any time to watch TV anyway, but I remember being in the flat, and even in those days, Sharon would go to her mother's for Christmas dinner or Christmas Day. That was their thing. And I was at home on my own. And I can't remember what it might have been Bridge Over the River Kwai, and the other one was, I can't definitely remember, was Memphis Belle. 2 movies. I sat in the sofa, a sheet over my legs, a duvet or whatever it was, and I sat, and it was the sweetest Christmas I'd ever had. Just peace. Oh. Just peace. It was peace. I would just get up, make a cup of tea, biscuit, whatever it was, have a snack, sit down again, watch TV. 2 movies I remember. I possibly watched 3 back to back. Mm. And this was on television, terrestrial television. Mm. Never have I watched so much television. And never had I watched so much television. And that was it. Mm. But the feeling of counting your money, making money, the feeling, you know, I mean, not being funny, but that became burdensome sometimes. Mm. You know, counting your money. It would, yeah, as the children were coming along over the years as well, because we have 6 children, that should be said. And their job was to count money. Wow. And pass them up. You know, it was like that. So it was absolute. It was hard. It was gruesome, but highly rewarding. And I had always said in the earlies that you can't influence a situation without being independent. And I've always said this, I'm on record from the very beginning. There were two things I'm on record. Those days, the charter companies and the travel agents, yeah, there were charter flights going on. And those are the early visitors to the Caribbean. You know, it was only the big boys them days. So I said it's an opportunity. Again, I would say, you know, nostalgia. When people are going to the Caribbean now, and I always viewed it as a collective, even though we're of Jamaican heritage, I would say, you know, they could have their curry goat. So the strapline was the taste without the expense. You don't have to go anywhere. Coming up, Caribbean takeaway, the taste without the expense. And so where you had people traveling and, you know, cheaper holidays, then they would be acquiring the taste, and they couldn't produce it themselves, but we would be a place they could come and buy it. They would know of us. You know, jerk chicken and curry goat. If you have those two, you've satisfied 95% of your customers without a doubt.
Yeah.
You know, so that was it. I mean, I even remember the travelers in Lewisham. We used to have a traveler site, caravan site. And they were the ones, if you do the research, back in the 90s, they got on a plane to a holiday, you know, because they, you know, it was only Spain those days. But when the Caribbean came on the charter circuit, it became more affordable. So they went on a flight and were fighting on the aircraft. And it made national news. And I remember one of them, the females, went to school with Sharon, Catford Girls. And so it made the news. But everybody was our customer. They were our customers.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
They were our customers. And being next to the train station, we had people from the city. Well, I mean, there isn't anyone, you know, Nigel Benn in the early days, you know, you'd see the front of the car and see the rest of it, you know, a minute later, it was so long. Okay. Oh, yeah, all the boxers, all of them. You know, Gary Mason, the boxers at the time, all of them, you know, Bruno with Fed over at Forest Hill, even more regularly since opening in Brighton, jumping ahead a little bit. We're very friendly with Chris Eubanks and Chris Jr. When they're up in London, they check us out. We deliver to whichever hotel they're in, you know, but we established, they obviously living in Brighton, growing in Brighton, and having the shop in Brighton in 2012, we established, you know, good relationships. You know, there isn't anyone, and even we haven't even started speaking about the catering side of the business, which sort of naturally evolved. You know, it wasn't that we'd set up to do it. It was we were the trusted takeaway, and as people do, they're having their events. We're all young, you know, they're getting married, they're having their christenings, like us all at that time. Oh, Richard, can you do, or Sharon, are you able to, whatever? And obviously would say yes.